Today's a special one. I'm talking with Kevin Rios and Jonathan Del Arco, the filmmakers behind Latin Lover, a new short film about the death and legacy of Ramon Novarro, a star of the early silent film era who successfully transitioned into talkies in the 1920s and 1930s. He was also a closeted gay man, and in 1968 he was murdered by escorts who believed he had a stash of money hidden in his house. During their trial, Navarro's name was dragged through the mud because homosexuality was illegal in California until the 1970s. So he was painted as a criminal and his legacy was unjustly tarnished. Latin Lover does an incredible job of showing what a kind and gentle man Ramon was, and it gives him the proper swan song he never got in life, a final leading role. If there's a pantheon of old Hollywood icons, he deserves to be recognized as a gay and Latino hero. And if you're in the greater New York area, Latin Lover will be playing at the Cherry Grove Archives Collection Film Festival on Saturday, July 18th, 2026. You can buy tickets to attend the festival in person or virtually via streaming in the video description below. Aside from Latin Lover, I did get to indulge my inner fanboy with Jonathan Del Arco, who's genuinely one of my favorite actors. He was generous with stories about Miami Vice, Major Crimes, Nip Tuck, and Star Trek Picard, and talked about his evolution as a gay actor in the 1980s and beyond, and how the times changed and he changed with them. But in retrospect, I imagine he'd be too modest to say this, but between his work on camera and off camera as a political activist and advocate for gay rights, I'd say he changed the times. Not to toot my own horn, but I think this chat turned out really great. And if you agree, let me know with a like, subscribe, leave a comment, maybe check out some of the other videos on the channel. All right, I'll shut up now. Let's get to the interview. This is Kevin Rios and Jonathan Del Arco on Ramon Novarro, Latin Lover.
Well, I found out about him after in 2019 after I had seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I researched the period and then I came across Ramon as another person who was tragically killed around the same time. And then I dove into what happened to him and who he was. And the phrase, Latin lover, uh, quickly was, anytime you research him, it pops up immediately. So, um, I immediately knew I wanted to make a film about it as soon as I heard it, and I knew that I wanted to, reimagine his last night, similar to how Tarantino reimagined the Manson murders. Um, but in this case, no one, as you said, has heard of Ramon. Everyone has heard of Sharon Tate. So to to make her survive was subverting what everyone knew. But I knew that no one knew Ramon, so I had to show the murder. But what no one knew or no one had seen is his humanity and his last moments, and that's what brought me to write it, is to give him a sense of dignity at the end.
And when did you go? It's got to be Jonathan.
Well, actually, I um, had spoken to a few casting directors who had mentioned Jonathan as an actor that I should be looking into. And I was speaking to a friend who's actually in the film Blaze. He plays Larry, and he was, he's another filmmaker, and he was asking me um, what the update was, and Jonathan was his neighbor. So he was like, give me the script. I'll send it to him right now. And it was very serendipitous and awesome. And that's how me and Jonathan got connected.
Tell me a little bit about the responsibility, and I know that there's special thanks to family members in the movie. When you decided to actually make the movie, how you were going to do justice to a legacy that should be much larger than it is?
Well, I knew that I wanted to respectfully tell Ramon's story, and I came up with the idea in 2019 and with COVID, and I had a job at the time that was all consuming, and it just kept getting delayed. But then in 2022, I lost my dad, and I was reflecting a lot about loss and grief, and Ramon's story came up. And in 2024, finally, I left my job at Disney, and I realized I wanted to come back home, and I wanted to be around family, and I wanted to be a filmmaker again. And I knew that this story, Ramon, Latin Lover, was the way that I can reintroduce myself back into the world of filmmaking. And it was, through family that I was able to get the support to fund the movie, as well as um, have the support to be able to produce the film as well. So through that, I knew that I wanted to, you know, respectfully tell Ramon's story, and, through that, process my own grief and loss through processing Ramon's, tragic ending.
Uh, I feel like a film like this is so important right this moment. It's 2026. We'd like to think that we're in a progressive society where everything is better than it was and will never slip back. But we've learned in recent years that it's not really the case. It's very easy for society to slip back and fall into for victories to be undone. But the idea just that there's so much anti-queer and anti-Latino sentiment, state sponsored,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, that like I don't know. Just it's a question for the room. How do you keep your chin up? How do you keep moving forward? How do you go? This isn't going to stop me from doing what I want to do.
I think making art is the best weapon against all of it, to be honest. I think that that's, whatever form of art you make, whether it's a film or a play or write a book or a drawing, I think art is incredibly powerful. I think people find it incredibly threatening because it's so powerful. Because art can really change your heart and your mind, right? You expose someone to someone else's life. You watch someone else's life in a film, and somehow you are able to understand the humanity because you've spent 2 hours, or in this case, 11 minutes, even, right, watching someone's life. And so I think that that's really the weapon we have as artists right now. I mean, obviously, other people that aren't artists have weapons to sort of ward this bad period off. But the world's been through bad periods like this before. I mean, I'm working on a screenplay now about Lorca, and Lorca was a famous playwright in the 1930s, 1920s, who was assassinated by the Franco regime because he was queer, and his work was incendiary to a totalitarian government, right? But I've just been to Spain, as has Kevin, and I can attest that it's a very liberal and open society there, where people are respected and you have just a beautiful life, right? And so I think that there's hope in that, in seeing that historically these bad moments happen and people get through them. Those that survive that period, can then see something new on the other side of it. And I think we're just in that phase right now. So I tell myself that in order to keep myself sane. Whether it's true or not, it is my mantra. Like, just keep doing art and keep being a good person, and keep, community engaged, keep connected to your friends and your family and the people that think like you, and you'll make it through.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree. I mean, I luckily I was raised in Miami where the majority of people are Latino, so ever I wasn't really othered until I moved to New York, surprisingly, you know? And I I don't really think about it. I don't allow that to affect me. I'm able to keep in my own lane, and I agree with Jonathan. Like all I all I can do is what I want to do, which is make art, and whether people see it or they don't, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm gonna do, and hopefully it catches people's minds and hearts, and I'll go from there. But I am really not motivated or affected by everything going on, or at least I try not to be.
it's well said. I mean, they can only stop you if you let them stop you, right?
Right.
Right.
Uh, Now, Kevin, you mentioned Miami, and Jonathan, I have to, your first IMDb credit is on an episode of my all-time favorite show, Miami Vice.
Oh yeah.
Now, thematically, you play a gay bashing little punk.
I know. In one of the very first AIDS episodes on television on Miami Vice, which is
Yeah,
crazy when I think back, it was like 86 and a lot of TV had not done anything on AIDS. And Miami Vice, which was a hit series, right? And very popular in the straight community, obviously, did a piece, episode on a priest that opens a AIDS clinic inside the church. And I was the asshole that I was like this big though. I was such a little tiny punk, but I was like the punk that was like spray painting, fags go home or whatever on the church. So we've come a long way.
so I mean, where because you were very young at that point. I don't know if you were out. That's none of my business. You can say if you'd like, but where you are in your career at that point, were you like embarrassed or ashamed at all, or were you happy to be part of
No,
understanding the larger story that the episode was telling, or were you 21 and just happy to have a job?
I was very happy to have a job. I was around 21, 22. I had just done a play which is a very queer play in which I play a private in the Marines who it's called the Virgin Molly. It's an absurdist play. This private in the Marines suddenly starts to grow a belly, and he's been impregnated with Jesus, and he gives birth to a baby. And all the heteronormative like Marine guys don't know what to do with him because he's the sweet, kind, little out of it kid. And a director came to see me in the play and took me to lunch and said, I think you're really great, blah, blah, blah. Who's your agent and all this? Next thing I know, like 6 months later, I'm being flown to Miami. And I show up at Wardrobe and her name is Jan Elisberg. And I walk in and there's Jan. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And she's like, how do you think you got the part? So, that role came out of playing someone queer, which I think is really funny. I was in a relationship at the time, interesting enough, with someone who had AIDS. I wasn't out about that. Um, and I was out to my friends, but I wasn't out in the industry. And I didn't really come out in the industry until I was in my 30s, primarily because I played a lot of young, like ingenue leading man kind of roles in movies and TV. And all of my reps were like, you can't come out, you can't come out. It was just common knowledge that coming out in the 80s was a death knell to your career. Um, and actually, I faced the most discrimination in those days from other queer people in the industry, like queer casting directors, queer producers. If they got a whiff that I was gay, they wouldn't hire me to play a straight part. So there was a lot of that. You could interview any gay actor from that period, it will tell you the same. That it was our own community that was so embarrassed to respond back to your word about being embarrassed, who were so embarrassed by our own presence in the industry that they didn't want to support gay actors. They didn't want their jobs being uh, ruined by the fact that they hired a gay guy to play a straight role. So, I mean, I think we've come a really long way since those days, but that some level of that still exists, I think. But it exists in a very weird way now for an actor. The frustrating thing about it is that a lot of these great roles, like the one Kevin wrote in this film, are given to straight actors. And I'm not one of those people that think actors can't play a million different things. I think we can and we should be allowed to, but there isn't parity, right? It isn't like I don't get to play that part, but I have an opportunity to play something else. The fact that I don't get to play a great role, that's a gay role, that's going to make my career and make me famous is a problem. Like the fact that there are great queer films whose leads are straight actors and straight and gay actors aren't getting the opportunity to tell our story, right? And so I'm so grateful to Kevin because like that was a really big part of this was to have an out person play this role and and really invest in the film's authenticity, right? I think that's really critical. Um, do I think you have to hire a gay person to have a great performance of a gay character? No, I don't. I don't think. I think actors are actors, right? I don't want to diminish that, but it would be really nice to be given the opportunities that a lot of people get, and a lot of gay people do not get. So it's about opportunity and about representation. So
Sure. Tremendously well said. I appreciate that. Um, you said that you came out in the industry in your 30s. Is it because you felt solid enough in your career, or that you weren't in as much danger, or
no,
did?
well, a funny thing happened. I went through my 20s playing 19-year-olds until I was like 30. And then I had a real dead period where I thought I had no career. Like there was nothing happening. So I actually started working in politics and became really involved politically. It's like my second passion now. I worked for Rob Reiner. And for Chad Griffin, who was a really big part of the gay movement, the gay marriage movement. I worked with them. I really like awakened to like my responsibility as a person to make change. And being gay was just a part of that, right? Like I was like, I'm not going to deny who I am. And interestingly enough, when that shifted in my head, um, I got cast as a transgender character on Nip Tuck, and that was really career and life changing for me. It was the first season of the show. It was getting so much attention in LA. Everyone in LA watched that show. Everyone. I remember that year we had gone to Sundance just for fun. We didn't have a movie in it. And everybody knew me. Like literally, I would go to parties and they would open the door and be like, Sophia can come in. That was the role I played. So funny loop back to that. I couldn't play transgender now. It would be politically incorrect. So
Right.
there's that. But so like I mean that's how progress happens, right? Like I 100% believe real transgender people that are actors should have the opportunity at these great parts. So I fully support that. I'm grateful I got to play that amazing role, but in today's climate, I wouldn't accept that role, right? Because it would be taking a job away from a trans person. So
Sure. Um, Kind of to that, and then we'll get back to Latin Lover. Forgive me for fanboying a little bit. Like when I sent you the message and you responded, I was like, oh my god. Because I've seen every episode of Major Crimes.
oh wow.
I mean, Mary McDonnell is my sweetheart in my mind.
Yes,
But
she's amazing.
um, so Dr. Morales, like, was he written as gay? Did you get to make him gay? Because you're introduced as just,
Yeah.
he's dead.
So
This is how he died.
he was written for me by my
Ah,
friend James Duff. Yeah. He wrote the role for me. I had to audition for it, but He said, I wrote you a role. You have to audition for it. And basically, like, if you don't get it, you must really suck because it's like written for you, you know? So no, it was written for me. That him being gay was always the subplot of it. And the conversation was that they would sort of deal with him being gay at some point in the process. It would just come out in a conversation or something, which is exactly how they did it. It was a very like, by the way, you know, obviously he's gay, right? I think my first line was something about brunch. So,
So did you
uh,
fight for scenes where he got to wear, regular clothes as opposed to
oh
the
yeah,
doctor scrubs?
yes, every day I fought for that.
So you wear old man face in Latin Lover. And
Well,
you look great in it, by the way. Like
thank you.
if you have that much gray and the lines when I believe he was 69 when he passed.
Hmm.
Um, it's a very good look, and you really rock it. Tell me a little bit about like when you got the spots, like what are they called, liver spots? Were you like
Yeah,
too
yeah, yeah.
much, or were you like, oh god?
No, we went full hog. I wanted to really look as the truth is Ramon had a very unhealthy life, right? So he medicated his pain with alcohol. You know, he had lots of DUIs. You know, he had a really rough adulthood. Well, once his stardom ended and sort of started to, you know, get, less jobs, the talkies came and all this. Um, so he was not in great shape, like physically. You know, he had a cane, he had all kinds of health issues, emphysema, probably from smoking in the early 20s. So I really wanted to pile it on as most realistically that we could. We didn't know how it was going to look on camera. It looks really good. I think the makeup was really great. So I welcomed it. I thought it was really, really important for us to capture as much of where he was at in his life. And I also wanted, like, from a performance perspective, what I really wanted to capture was the fact that the guy, as we read, Kevin gave me a book on him, and which I studied and I did my own research. But he was a gentleman. He was if you notice in the film, he's a host. He's bringing these young guys in. Yes, it's transactional in that he's having to pay for sex because he's in the closet, but he he really was a lovely man, that really was treated people with respect and did all this charity work. He left most of his money to the Catholic Church. I mean, he was just a stand-up guy. And I wanted to like really reflect that. I thought that was really important. Not just that he looked aged, but that he have a bearing of what a movie star would have, in that period.
Dignity.
Um, Dignity, yeah, the dignity of him, the sort of fabulousness of his stories, and he just seemed like there's not a lot of like footage of him in that period to look at. I found a couple of interviews online, and he was just he just sounded like he was from the 1950s, right? He had that cadence about him. It was just like a movie star cadence of that period, accented obviously because he was native Mexican, but I just wanted to capture as much about him as possible so that the audience could, in a way, feel a love for him and be sort of brought into his world, only to have it be violently taken away, right? So I thought that would be the only real effective way to tell the story from my and as an actor, because the rest is the director's job, right? And the way he edited and the way he choreographed, he got the choreography of the murder and all that. That's all Kevin's vision, right? So I had to carry my weight.
Kevin, when I see a short film in general, when I don't know what I'm going into, I go, okay, this is either going to be like super realistic, slice of life, handheld, intimate, extreme close ups, or it's going to be like super far out and I'm going to watch it and I'm going to be like, what happened? And this is such a perfect like middle ground where it's
Yeah.
so biographical and believable and realistic, but also so not avant-garde, abstract. Like the set, I love the black wall with the red lining of the window, like the outline, like that looks striking to me. How did you get the look that you wanted for the movie? Because it's so ethereal and like theatrical while still being cinematic.
Well, I mean, the time period informed that I wanted it to feel classic, and I wanted it to be, shot on 16 millimeter, similar to how films were shot back in the day. I myself am a film buff, and I shoot all my photos on 35 millimeter, and I've shot previous films of mine on 16 millimeter. So when I came to this story and raising money, it was one thing I knew I wanted to fight for. And shooting on film is expensive, and it is usually the first thing that people want to go, like, let's get away from that, let's do digital, even though digital has its own expenses. But I knew that the look, um, shooting on 16 and 8 was going to capture a look that you can't recreate. I mean, you could, in theory, recreate it through filters and
It's not the
editing.
same.
Yeah, it's not the same, especially for me. I I knew that it also gives you such a focus on set. Everyone's
Mhm.
more locked in and more focused when they know that there isn't an infinite amount of takes. There's more focus on the light. There's more focus. Everyone stands up a little straighter when you're shooting on film, and I love that about film. And also, it excites the crew and the actors to be shooting on film. So it was a non-negotiable choice for me, and you see it in the footage. It captures a feeling that I knew was going to help sell the story.
It's very athletic, right? It's sort of like when you're watching the World Cup and you go, these guys play great all the time. They're always great, right? These guys made it all the way to the World Cup, and then they're on. It's the World Cup, and it's one game, and it's the adrenaline of that, right? It's just the teams change because they either crumble under pressure or they come through, and it was that way on set. I think it made everything really heightened, and the things that were emotional were really emotional, and you knew you had one or two times at it, and that was it. So it was really exciting, and obviously I'm old enough to have worked on film for a long time, and since the advent of all this other technology, the old days were that way. That's how you had a limited amount, and you had to get it in the first take or the second, maybe. Sometimes with a stunt, you also have like one shot at it. So it's a really good feeling as an actor. We loved it.
Yeah, it was great.
In another era, had he been born in different circumstances, Ramon would have been beloved as a gay icon and
Hmm.
a gay Latino icon. And I feel like
Right.
you're making the moves to have more people realize that he's been that this whole time.
That was a huge point of the film too. I wanted to give Ramon one last starring role in
Hmm.
film where he was able to be himself. That there's a reason that I chose to showcase a specific scene where he is a Latin lover opposite Greta Garbo, and then he later in the film gets to do that opposite a man,
Yeah.
and then
Hmm.
gets to not only be seduced by the man, he gets to be in the more submissive role, and it get that was my hope, and I hope it captures that I gave Ramon his starring role where he could be himself.
You did. To send us out, Jonathan, or to play us out, was there a moment on the set of Star Trek where you were like, I know that the season, is all about grief. That's kind of the theme of the whole show at this point. But Can't there be a scene where they go, "Oh no, wait, actually, he's all right. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna make it. It was just a flesh wound. He's fine."
I'll tell you, that whole doing Picard you're talking about, that whole experience was super emotional because I came on board thinking I was going to be a regular. That's what they had told me. And then the regime changed over there. My friend James Duff, who wrote The Closer, was one of the original creators of Picard. He left. And so I was left to my own devices, and they had planned to kill me and didn't tell me.
Oh,
I get you.
So it was super emotional reconnecting with with Patrick and doing that hug scene that was my idea. And no, I think by the time they stabbed me in the neck, I was pretty pissed and ready to go.
Uh, Fair
Yeah.
enough.
And you know what? I got to do a couple of movies during that period, so I'm really grateful that it actually happened. So yeah.